Hello and welcome to an episode of the Growing Pains podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Alistair Gosling, the CEO and founder of Wavelength, and of course, the founder of the highly successful Extreme Sports International and the Extreme Sports channel. Alistair, a very warm welcome to the podcast.
Harry, lovely to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Super cool.
No problem at all. So I mentioned there, obviously, a very successful entrepreneur in your own right already. So I guess the burning question to kick us off is, what brings you back to the coalface into starting and growing another business?
I think, listen, having been there and built the Extreme Sports channel, and launched that around the world and then exited that, I saw there was a moment in time with that where media was at a certain point, and I saw the dissemination and just the chaos going on within the media space that is happening right now with the creator economy, production, that whole side of things, and was like, hey, let's see what we can do. And I think a key factor in that was meeting my business partner Ben Brown, who we met 3 or 4 years ago. Before I've done these, very much leading from the front on my own. This time, leading that together is a very different experience. Just more fun actually. The load shifted between two of you is very different than the load sitting on one of you. So those are probably. And I just love building stuff and working with people and all of that great stuff. Right? That's a key factor for me. It's very cool.
Brilliant. And then, so in terms of, I guess, the road ahead, what does your growth plan look like in terms of 12 to 18 months and what you guys want to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we spent 3 or 4 or 5 months looking at the sector of the media space called the creator economy, influencer market, whatever you want to call it, and we realized that in the current media landscape, it's just chaos at the moment, right? Because you've got, over the last 10, 12 years, you've got the social media platforms who've grown up. You've got old school TV broadcast sitting over here, and the audience has just shifted away from here in huge numbers and massive, especially with the younger demographic. So less and less people are watching mainstream TV that we know it in terms of old school. Centralized, you've got the streaming platforms, whether that's Netflix, Prime, whoever, who've obviously built that offer in there in terms of subscription advertising around that. And over here, you've got the social tech, big advertising, big tech platforms. And the audience has just shifted across in such a big way. And we just felt, there was just big opportunity in this area, with TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube sitting central to that. And what could we do and what could we build? And so we said, okay, there's an opportunity to a degree to build this network of channels at scale, bring a bunch of large scale creators and publishing pages, social pages together into a group, and then build and monetize them and work that across. And on the other side, the other area we're really working is events. So live experiences and experiential. We see two major growth areas marketing wise. One is in that social media creator economy space, and the other is experiential and live. And we're building out in both of those areas as it stands.
Brilliant. And what's the sort of key to growing those? Is it partnerships? And I guess within that, what makes a good partnership? You've seen a lot of this before, and what are the things that really stand out for you in terms of people that you want to work with to build out the brand?
Yeah, I mean, look, the key to any business is as a start point is obviously the people. So, managing and working with great people, number one for me is, and that's what drives me pretty much day in, day out, right? Is the people we work with. And so that would be number one. And then in terms of partnerships is, again, it comes down to finding cool people that you want to work with, who want to do cool stuff and make good stuff happen, whether it's on the events and the experiential side, or whether it's on the social media activation side. And what we have the ability to do is, when people understand that we can take maybe they're spending money on the tech platforms, Meta, Instagram, wherever they're spending money from just a digital buy perspective. So much of that is just wasted, is our view in certain instances. And so if you can take a creator or create content and become more of a start studio thinking around this as a brand and a whatever business that might be, you have this opportunity to really scale that in with us in terms of looking at the creators you can work with, and then in addition to that, we can then boost that on an organic basis through our network of channels, which as it stands sits at about 320 million followers across the different platforms. So it's reasonable, it's operating at scale. So an amazing example, live example of that would be TripAdvisor. Working with them, in the creative director globally leading around some of this stuff is Ollie, and we are working multiple opportunities and multiple angles together with those guys, with obviously tourism boards, destinations, that type of client. And literally I've got a whole team in Turkey right now, shooting some super cool, fun, experiential activations and events and doing bits and pieces. So, as we speak, it's happening live.
And in terms of the people that you want to sort of bring into your stable, I guess, what do you want to see in them and in their content? What is it that's going to turn heads for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's finding people that have a very clear niche and a very clear vision and are super professional. They want to concentrate on creating content on their channel at the best. How can we just focus entirely on that, and then we can support them and be around them in terms of that side. Saying that, we're really looking for people that are operating at reasonable scale, either got a really interesting niche and are in a perfect world operating at scale, with north of 5 to 10 million followers. A perfect scenario is north of 50, but there's only so many of those around. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for. But it's somebody who's got a niche, really interesting, wants to work, wants to build these things out, and we can really partner with. And our view is to try and build equity value in any of these things is very, very tough if you're on your own. If you have a network and everyone owns a piece of it, that's a much better, and it's just a much more strategic play, which is interesting.
And what sort of response have you had to that, I guess, for people who are considering that move from being on their own to being part of more of a collective? What's their view?
Um, Listen, I think a lot of this boils down to, Ben, who I mentioned earlier, Ben Brown, my business partner, his background is, brand partnerships, right? So he was at Universal Music doing brand deals between the artists and the brands, and then went on to Spotify, where he was selling the app inventory at Spotify and billing. Each of those businesses was billing kind of 150 to $100 million. And so it really comes down to that. I'm probably bringing the business side of things, that thinking, that strategic operating. What's the plan? What's the vision? What's the longer term strategy goal? We're all looking at that. I'm day-to-day operations, with Ben more focused on finding those opportunities and bringing those in, and then amazing at packaging and understanding that. So I think, as I said, it's really finding good people who are wanting to build, understand our vision clearly, and then, go out and make it happen together is really the goal here.
And you mentioned before this being the sort of first time that you have worked with somebody else. You did it more on your own the first time. And it sounds like there are fairly clear roles for the two of you. What's that kind of been like, not having to do it all yourself and knowing that he's got that part, you've got yours?
Yeah, I would probably mention also Sarah Turner, our chief of staff, who sits squarely in the middle between the two of us, actually, and basically just with a large baseball bat, just make sure everything gets done on time and delivered, et cetera, et cetera. And she's absolutely amazing. And so, look, it's just a different dynamic, right? When you're able to cover off different things and different. I mean, there's many, many examples of great partnerships where they built incredible businesses, and it's just the whole way you operate, the whole way it develops, you're catching bits, team, you're able to catch bits for each other and remind each other and just make sure everything moves forward as it should do, right? Which is fantastic.
And then in terms of the wider people, you mentioned obviously it's important to work with great people. And I think it's one of those things that a lot of businesses say and certainly pay lip service to, but I know it's very
Yeah.
important to you. What, I guess, firstly in the past, but also coming into now, what are the keys for you to keep people engaged, motivated, and pulling in the same direction as you?
I mean, I think, look, setting that clear vision at the top is obviously key. What I really try and do is I try and touch base with them early and often, right? So just touching base, how you doing? What's going on? Whether it's personal and on all fronts, that's one thing I really try and do is make sure they're very clear on growth opportunities, right? So where can they go? What's the opportunity here? So they can see a growth path. Um, and then also trying to give very balanced feedback, right? So if somebody is doing really well, you know, then obviously give that feedback. But if there's areas where you're really trying, just give that balance, right? Tell them, be very clear, right? That's and then, I think just, making that a habit is really what I try and do with everybody is just like you're doing really well here and just working that into everyday or just operations is what I've tried to do over the last, many years of building these things.
And have there been any aspects of sort of people that you have found more challenging?
Oh goodness, where do I start? Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think, look, it's where it is challenging with any startup business is the flux, the up and down, cash flow wise, and you're trying to on side make sure people are clear. This is where we are and understand this is the scenario. On the other side, you're trying to make them feel secure and that they are able to do a good job and all of those things. So probably with any startup, that's the challenge you always have in my world of kind of that scenario of just security versus being really open with people. How open, or this is where we are and this is the scenario, right? Risk profile wise, because they are not. They're obviously, the risk profile for them is they want to make sure they've got a job and the money's coming in at the end of the month, right? And you need to enable that.
Yeah, and I suppose that requires a separation which can be challenging for founders of, as the founder, your sort of day to day is so enveloped in the growth of the business and the day to day of it. But as you say, other people, it can be more of a job. It can be about their security, whether it's rent, looking after a family. How have you found over your sort of entrepreneurial career that ability to say, look, where I'm coming at this from may be different to the rest of my team?
I think, look, on the journey, I've worked with some amazing and incredible people through the years, right? And I think I'm at times good to work with, and at other times I'm really difficult to work with, right? So, I'm dyslexic. I'm not diagnosed, but definitely got some ADHD in there in certain areas. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be doing what we're doing, right? To a degree, and so that creates challenges in its own right. And I think it's about surrounding yourself with people who have those different skill sets, right? I mean, Sarah, who I work directly with every day day in, day out, her skill set over here in terms of administration and just, she'll look at a form and go, great, done. I'll look at a form and go, whoa, right? And it's that getting that balance of skills and the positives that are in that mix and cover off the bases. She can't do certain things that I'm obviously driving and doing. And that balance is amazing. And it's the same with Ben and I, right? Ben is really good at certain things, but I'm extraordinary, even though I'm dyslexic, I'm probably more in the contracts than he is. And that is just part of the mix of having done contracts for a long time. So yeah, so I think it is this balance that you kind of go through, and finding great people who complement you, and you can really, you can support and they can support and build things from there, really.
Mm. And in terms of covering off all of those tasks, as you're sort of getting to that point and bringing in different people to, I guess, do things better than you, one of the earlier things that is tricky is obviously prioritization for founders. Is there any
Yeah.
advice that you would give founders around how to go about it?
Uh, Listen, it's really difficult. The discipline around this, actually, for me especially, comes back to, Ben, myself, Sarah, every day we are sitting and going, what has to be done today? There's a priority to-do list that's thought through every morning and is very, very disciplined and organized. And that is fantastic, right? And then you've got these are the jobs I've got to get done today and get achieved and make happen. And we work religiously to try and make sure that happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's the other part of, if you're on your own, you can kind of get away with not doing that at times. If you're with partners, you can't, you've got to deliver, right? So, yeah. And so that probably, just that ruthless thinking, spending the time to just think through what needs to be done, getting that list together every morning, I think is just makes you just more efficient, right?
Yeah. And I suppose it builds trust and accountability, which is a question I was going to ask, going back to the people aspect. How have you, well, I suppose, what have you found to be the most effective ways to build trust and make sure that it goes both ways?
I think trying to treat people as you want to be treated yourself is a key thing, right? And I think also hoping that people have the ability to just, if there is a problem or they're not happy, is come and communicate, right? Is communicate either through, you know, wherever they come and communicate, but hopefully it's direct if they're feeling in a certain way. Um, at the same time, they have to understand kind of where the business is in that startup phase, what can be done and what can't be done, right? This is not a big corporate organization where you're going to get that kind of structured car, medical, those things. It's just because we're not in that space, right? So yeah, so there's that. Yeah, there's the balance there, really, ultimately.
And when does that start in terms of setting those expectations? Is it, interview stage from the very first time you chat to someone?
Absolutely. Managing expectations and being brutally honest out of the gate, because otherwise you just waste your time, right? People come in, they think it's one thing and then it's not. And that is just not good for them. It's not good for us. It's just painful all round. So I much prefer to paint a great picture on one side, balanced with this is how it really is on the other, because that way, hopefully, people are like, okay, I get it, I understand, and actually, I many times ask them, request, go and have another conversation with some of the wider team, so you understand this before you get in here, and that is, I find, really helpful as well.
Yeah. And have you had anyone, I guess, this time around coming in knowing your profile, expecting it to be at a certain stage, but it's at a different stage? Because obviously that move from growing a bigger beast to starting again obviously is a bit of a shift, but people may be attracted by your profile as much as the business.
Mm, Thank you. Uh, no, because through that interview process, or people going to join us, we're pretty black and white, right? And so people always do assume, right? But I've just realized through the years, just much, much better to cut to the chase, not sugarcoat it out the gate, and just make sure, and be very clear. This is what we can do. This is what we can't do. This is the structure. This is this. And I just find that's just much, much better to work to that basis than the other way, right? Yeah, is really the key here.
Yeah, people coming in expecting what to know as opposed to that sort of job spec that basically advertises your company as the best in the world, and then people get there and they're actually off buying the coffee. It's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Spot on. Completely.
And obviously we've had some pearls of wisdom so far, but in terms of the kind of most important takeaways, I know that's a very broad thing to ask, but I suppose focusing more on the ones that were more of a surprise to you. What are the things that you would say to budding entrepreneurs, people thinking about taking the leap, people with an idea that, again, you need to be really realistic about?
There's many, many. First of all, I think people think it will be one way and it's going to be another, right? It's never how you imagine exactly. So you've got to remain fluid and flexible. It's going to be much harder than you probably think, and it'll take much longer than you probably think. Yeah. And, you know, if you're going to make that move, just be as prepared as you can for the ups and downs that you naturally get in these situations, right? And what you're trying to do is, you know, it's not everybody does this, and there's a very good reason for it, and just making sure that you are ready for that. And as I said before, having done it on my own and having now building with a partner and partners, I would definitely advise, if you can find a partner to go and do these things with, go and do that, because it really, really, it just the whole journey, there's so many reasons why it really can work so well. So, um, but yeah, you obviously need a leader in each business, but you can do it on a very balanced basis with clear roles and responsibilities. But yeah, and otherwise, it can be the most amazing, rewarding thing, but at the other end of the spectrum, it can be the hardest thing you probably will have ever done, depending on the circumstances and the situation. But yeah, all good.
And you talked about obviously the sort of challenge and your role in that, and needing a visionary leader. But then what role does ego play when you've been through the sort of process and seen it for what it is, and come back to it again? As a leader, how do you know when to step back, when to bring other people in to do certain aspects, and really be clear on what your role is in the different chapters that you go through?
I think you can map those and you can try and be as self-aware as possible. I mean, what I'm loving at the moment, or part of what I'm loving at the moment, is trying to be really honest, whether it's us or partners, where we're still in scruffy, scrappy, messy startup mode. Yes, we've done this before, but it's still grindy, early stage. And I think that honesty around that, people really appreciate, right? And so that, I think, as you can kind of sugarcoat it, we're doing this, we're doing that, blah, blah, blah. But just and I'm tending to be very honest with people. This is where we are, and this is the scenario we're in right now. And people react really well to that. And I think for many reasons. And that, I think, stands you in really good stead, right? In terms of the overall would be a thought there.
Mhm. And if we look at it then as this latest venture with Wavelength, where are you in your mind in 5-10 years time?
Look, I think if we're running a network of amazing channels and incredible live experiences and events around the world, working with great brands and great partners, working with great people, um, yeah, we'll be in good shape, really, really good shape. And we're definitely, we're on the journey. We've taken a few with the stepping stones. We've taken a good few steps to making that happen. It's still not easy in any way, shape, or form, but it's a lot of fun. And yeah, is really kind of where we are.
And as a final plug, talking to the audience of creators that might be looking at it as prospective partners, why you guys?
Look, I think what we're not trying to do is build an agency business here. There are many creator agencies out there bringing brand deals in and doing that stuff, right? And they might have hundreds, tens, fifties, thousand creators on the books, right? In terms of working that. We're not operating, we're looking at very specific niches on a strategic basis to build a network. And if you fit within that niche and want to partner, I think we're a really, really, really good option around that. I really do. And I think on the flip side of that, in terms of brand conversations and brand partnerships, I think what we're doing and what we're delivering in the marketplace is really interesting. Because just buying advertising on the big tech, big advertising platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Meta, you know, there is a lot of discussion going on at the moment around the fraud that's moving around in that space. And, you know, they're marking their own homework, right? So the equivalent of the IAD in Sweden just kicked Meta out of the platform because they're just not playing as they potentially should be, right? Whereas in the UK, we're still embracing it, but it is there. And I think it's just taking time. It will take time for, it's swung so heavily in that direction. And the balance needs to come back to be looking at marketing directors. They're not fast. They're not moving quickly, but they're not stupid either. And after a while, they start to, they understand it and get it in terms of good processes and just good activations and what people are looking for. And I think more and more to reach people on an emotional level, as I said, live experiences, events, I think is key growing, and that creator influencer space is really, really interesting.
Brilliant. Well, I look forward to seeing it all playing out. But thank you very, very much for your time, Alistair. It's been great to speak to you.
Harry, great to talk to you too. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and lovely to connect today.
Brilliant. All the best.
Thank you very much.